to be checking out the latest SRD 5.2. This just came out today, April 22nd, 2025. Little disclaimer, this is just for fan content. This is not official. Also, won't be going into any of the legalese or, what's legal, what isn't, all the differences between the OGL and all that stuff. We're just going to focus on content. And also mention that the Fantasy Grounds Academy is not directly affiliated with the Fantasy Grounds or Smiteworks LLC. We're just a fan club / educational thing. And none of the stuff that I'm saying is official, but if you like the content, subscribe. And also, we're going to cover a little bit of the SRD, not going to go over it. There's plenty of videos out there now that have already done this. They started getting into AI and all this other stuff, so I'm going to do that, but not so much the legality or the other things that go along with publishing content. But I do want to mention that I do recognize the legal function of it, and also mention those things in either the end of the stream or in my content. So speaking of content, I went ahead and downloaded the latest and greatest SRD 5.2. It goes, if you go to the D&D Beyond website, and by the way, I will have a link directly to the SRD 5.2, but nonetheless, basically with 5.2, you can design new content for 2024 5th edition rule set. You can publish your own campaign using 2024 5th edition rule set. Or you can print and sell either 2024 or 2014 for your own. So this would be under the Creative Commons license for 5.2. The DM's Guild seems to give you a little bit more flexibility, but nonetheless, it's a little bit more flexible than before, and that's about all I can say. There are some things that I noticed. There isn't a bunch of monsters. There's like 44 of them. There are quite a few spells, which I'm glad, because spells are kind of hard to make sometimes. And then it kind of goes into some of the basic rules, the hazards, combat, and then you get a whole bunch of magic items, a whole bunch of spells, some monsters to base your things on. Like, if you're going to make a dragon, there's plenty of base dragons there. So with that in mind, what I've done here is I took the SRD and I uploaded it into my private ChatGPT chat session. And basically, I've created some content with the SRD 5.2 on top of anything creative. And one of the prompts that I had said is, use the SRD 5.2, anything above and beyond what's in there, you can modify to make it custom. In other words, just kind of change the titles. You can make, your own custom stuff, or use the 5.2. You don't want to use any of their trade dress or any of that kind of stuff if you can help it, unless, of course, you're using it just for your personal games. So this is a cover image that I had it generate based off of my previous conversation, Scourge of the Shifting Sands. Supposed to be a one-shot designed for 5th through 7th level. Takes place in a desert, a little bit cliche, but essentially this is a one-shot just for like 4 to 6 hours. It's got 3 acts, and you just basically exploring the desert. You come across this wounded individual, a desert dervish. His name is Kareem. You find out that they were looking for this obelisk, and you're not sure if they were grave robbers or maybe they had some sort of right to whatever they were looking for. But basically, that's the gist of it. You go to this underground kind of lair, and there's a little bit of magic items, some hazards and such, and inside is an orange dragon, or like a brown dragon, and essentially it is more like a drake. It does have flight, but it's very limited. So to make up for that, it has burrowing instead, and it also has like an abrasive, like sand blasting breath weapon, and some other uniqueness to it. So that's kind of the big bad evil guy. Inside, you'll find like a +1 scimitar that has like a really nice design of the scorpion with the sun. Perhaps it was the original builders or someone who had gone into this grave or whatever it is, this cavern dungeon thing, a long time ago, or it, there's other things in there too, like art pieces and stuff. So it's probably a grave. But basically, this is the adventure. So you don't necessarily have to wait for Fantasy Grounds to publish the SRD 5.2. I'm pretty certain they're going to get this put in when they can. But for the time being, download the PDF and upload it into your favorite AI tool. The file size itself isn't too big. There's no pictures and such in it. It is pretty beefy. There's like over 300 pages. Anything larger than that would probably cause issue, but you're able to use this in ChatGPT fairly easily, especially if you have a paid account. And what's nice is you can draw upon this to publish or to create content within the guidelines of the SRD 5.2, and it kind of helps, I guess, sort of speeds up the process of creating content, but then also gives you reference so that you have a basis to build your stuff on. So that's kind of a nice little thing there that you'll notice. And this is kind of like 5.1 SRD, but I want to say that the monsters are a little bit pared down. I was a little bit disappointed about that, but you have all the basics. Let's take a look at the monsters. That's really what I want in most cases. And then you have your base classes too. So there's quite a bit of material here for people who want to start something and base their creations with. So you'll have that option as well, and it does have quite a few spells, so I'm pretty happy for that. Like, you have all your base classes and such, and then your all this standard stuff, so you can technically take one of these and make your own subclasses. Let's see. So those are all the spells, and then you start getting into your subclasses. Let me see if they get into the species or races or whatever they want to call it. Let's see. Yeah, so this is quite a big SRD reference. So this will be helpful if you guys start getting into this. They included some errata recently, so that was included in here. Also, I think today I downloaded an update for the core rules, so those include the errata as well. They got those in for Fantasy Grounds. I don't know when they're going to put the SRD in, or if they're going to, but I did put in a request, an informal request with Doug and Smiteworks to see if any of the Forge creators can create content using the SRD 5.2. I don't think they're going to let us, because they'll probably want everything to be on D&D Beyond or something like that, but we'll see. I just asked just for the sake of it. I don't really have any skin in the game, other than if I'd like to publish something, whether it's free or not, I'd like to be able to do that without all this hubbub and have to go through the DM's Guild, because if that's the case, then you got to make the PDF and the Fantasy Grounds version. I don't really feel like doing that, to be honest with you. But anyway, so these are just some of the content that was built off of a prompt. Basically, I wanted a desert setting. I wanted a big bad evil dragon. So I thought that'd be kind of fun. So it's a 5th level one shot for the 5e SRD 5.2 compatible adventure summary. So caravans have vanished along desert routes. Survivors speak of a wind that strips flesh and dunes that swallow men whole. Beneath the sands, a cunning young orange dragon rules from ancient ruins. The adventurers must brave heat, disease-carrying pests, collapsing tunnels, and face the dragon in its lair. So like I said, this dragon is a young dragon. It's not fully grown yet, but it is pretty menacing. And it has some uniqueness to it, for the breath weapon and the fact that it can burrow better than it can fly. And then it is also more like a drake. It kind of has that kind of feel to it. So I think I want to make the dragon, the young orange dragon. So what I want to do is take a picture, or take a thing, copy and paste, I'm going to do a prompt to see if it'll do the art. So create a, I'll say, I want to use the same art style. So using the same art style as above, we'll say create a, I'll just say young adult orange dragon with short, stubby, it has really stubby wings. It can't really fly very well, maybe hover, at best, or at least flap their wings to make the sand, fly around, but that's about it. Create a young adult orange dragon. I'll just say dragon instead of orange, because it might get too extreme. With stubby legs, stubby wings, and large digging claws, because it can burrow. It has rough and dry scales. It's, we'll say, its skin, its leathery skin is an orangish, kind of an orangish brown. And its underbelly is kind of a beige color. That way, if we say orange right off the bat, it might make it too orange, like too crazy looking. It puts more emphasis, like when you do prompting, like the stuff up in the beginning is going to take more precedence than the stuff below, usually, depending on the AI tool. Its leathery skin is an orangish brown color, and its underbelly is a beige color. It has a menacing face with sharp reptilian teeth, a short dragon snout, I'll say a dusty appearance. Let's see what else. Oh, it has, I'm going to say it has a single horn on its head. This is going to be like a unicorn. I thought it'd be kind of different, because a lot of dragons have that two horns, or, I thought it'd be kind of cool to be a little different. It has a single short, I'll say short digging horn on it. So it uses that single horn to kind of help dig. I'll say plain white background, because I want to be able to use it in other areas. So if I ask it for that plain white background, it's easier to cut it out if you have to make a transparency out of it. I do like a full picture that has like the the cover and everything, but I kind of want to have it separate in case. And then I'm going to say, even though it's not a camera photo, this 35mm lens camera shot helps refine it. So it helps refine the definition of it. So it's not too cartoony, but it's not super like video game like. All right, so let's see if how this turns out. I like how this turned out. The scores of the shifting sands. This is tolerable. I mean, there's Kareem there. You find him amongst his colleagues that are basically dead. He's basically on his way out too. You can save him. He'll give you a little bit of information about the dragon. He won't say dragon. He'll say like a giant lizard or something like that. And then he also tells you the story about an ancient legend about the the scorpion, or the Lost clan that, you know, their moniker was a scorpion, I guess. They were looking for the treasure or for the vault, the tomb. Maybe it was their ancestors, or they're probably saying that because they're actually grave robbers, you know, whatever it may be. So far, this looks okay. Yeah, it's okay. I like it. It works. I wanted a little bit more menacing, but that's good enough. Yeah, I like it. So it kind of looks like a baby one though, but I'm okay with that. That's not bad. So I'm gonna say let's make a pog. So using the same art style above, create a high quality RPG pog. RPG pog with a tan colored stone border around, or say the horn of the dragon sticks out slightly over the top, or slightly over the border near the top of the pog. So you can get these to kind of break out, which is kind of cool. So we can make a pog of this right away and see how it turns out. So create a high quality RPG pog with a tan colored stone border. We'll say with a thin, I don't want a really thick one. A thin tan colored stone border. There we go. And the horn of the dragon sticks out slightly over the border near the top of the pog. The pog is surrounded by plain white background. That makes it easier to cut it out. All right, so we'll see what happens. So I'm going to do that. So while it's generating, again, I'm just kind of checking out the SRD 5.2. Like I said, I'm not doing a whole review on it. There's already been like a dozen of those videos released on YouTube. So if you want to know all the particulars, I'm going to check those out, and other YouTube channels. I'm kind of more focusing on creating content for Fantasy Grounds, and then also kind of getting used to using the SRD 5.2 and feeding it into ChatGPT. Seems to let me try again. Okay, give me a second, I'll get it sorted. So it had a problem generating the image, but that's pretty livable. I mean, I can handle that. It is a young dragon, but this looks like a baby. I might redo that, but I've already making the pog for it, so I'm kind of stuck with it now, I guess. It's not that big of a deal. But I am kind of picky about those things. But anyways, so that's just a use case type thing for AI tool like ChatGPT. I'm using the Plus version, and like I said, if you use a smaller footprint PDF, you can upload that and use it for reference, just so you can have it to create content a little bit quicker and easier. And then I do remind it occasionally to make sure that the content is within the scope of the SRD 5.2. You're still going to have to go through and scrub it, but at least it kind of starts off with mostly good things. So if you're going to sell the content, you'll have a lot of that taken care of. So that's not too bad. It's pretty much exactly what I wanted. This actually looks cooler than the image, so that's cool. There is a scimitar sword, so I'm going to say, using the same art style, create a magical and polished, a magical scimitar sword that has a, I'll say a beautifully designed hilt, and it has a scorpion motif and sunrise along the blade. So it has like an etching in it, and it's basically some ancient sword. I'll say high quality fantasy art. And we're going to also say plain white background. So I don't want all that stuff, the noise in the background. We'll see what it does. But yeah, you can just kind of keep going down and, you know, creating this. But it took the notes and the design concepts that I use most of the time, like the 3 acts. Instead of a 5-room dungeon, it's like a 3-room type thing. So you go to the sands area, basically, you find the footprints. You end up finding the obelisk, you go down inside, and then there's the fight with the dragon. It's really kind of a really short concept, but the play will probably, you know, with the role playing, explorations, hazards, setbacks, you know, all that stuff, probably at least 4 or 5 hours, depending on the group. And it's levels 5 through 7, so they shouldn't, you know, die right away. They can always flee. Speaking of fleas, I had the sand flea that I added to this, so it's more of a menace, but the problem is if you get bit by those, they give you a disease that doesn't manifest right away. But at the end of the adventure, anyone who was bitten by that starts feeling a little bit feverish. And there's a thing about it where it kind of makes you sick, and it gives you a level of exhaustion until you find a cure for it, and it gives you disadvantage on strength checks and stuff. So it's kind of messed up. So that's kind of a nasty little surprise there. And then, of course, you know, you got this cool treasure. You get the magic sword. There's a healing potion. And then there's some, like, art objects in there. Yeah, there's a drift globe in there, too. So at one point, someone probably was there to deliver or to take treasure from here. And then there's some ancient gold coins. There's a gilded bronze scarab, an obsidian idol, silver scroll case. They're pretty nice objects. So this is the stat blocks did a pretty good job with creating those, except for I don't see the ability scores. Not sure why it did that, but they're nonetheless. It kind of just gives you these are kind of more like, you know, a bestiary appendix. So make the full stat blocks later, but it's kind of one of those things where, you know, it is what it is. You're gonna sometimes it doesn't give you what it wants. That's okay. I can live with that. I think it looks a little cartoony, cheesy, but I do like it. It does represent what I was looking for, so that's great. So I might use this for a handout to someone who wants the sword or finds it. I think that what I'm going to end up doing is, instead of this being like a treasure inside the tomb, or maybe it is buried with whoever's in the tomb. Maybe it's a king or a scorpion king or something like that, but nonetheless, I think this would be fun. So I think all in all, with putting in the artwork, because I've already got like 3 or 4 art pieces here, probably do the sand flea, at least a token for it. Make a token for Kareem in case you bring him along or heal him. And then maybe another scene where, you know, the inside the tomb or something, like the treasure or something. That's pretty much all I would need. Just a few more pogs, maybe an image inside of the tomb, and then maybe one other NPC handout or something. That's about all you would need, really, for a small adventure like this. And then, of course, a map. Let's try to do I want to say create a top-down tactical battle map. with fallen rocks, debris, sand, and rough megalithic stone walls. But I got to kind of give it an idea. So create a top-down tactical battle map of an underground desert tomb with a couple fallen rocks, pebble, and I'll say skeleton debris. I always like skeletons. You know, you could technically add skeletons to this thing to make it, you know, to make it tougher if they're mowing through it. Megalithic stone walls. We'll see. Just kind of keep it simple. I think the more you add to these, it confuses the AI tool quite a bit. You leave less room for it to think, and then it kind of paints itself into a corner, literally. So if you prompt it for something it's not capable of, it tries to do it, but then it's just frustrating. So I found that something like this, you want to be a little bit less descriptive, because if you add a bunch of things to it, it's probably going to miss half of it, and then the things it gets right are going to be the wrong orientation or the wrong color or something stupid like that. So maybe this will help some of you down the road. If you want to create like a quick kind of map type thing, this so far looks pretty good. Doesn't look too shabby. I like the style so far. It looks kind of battle map-ish. See, I didn't really necessarily want these, but I did say megalithic walls. So if I didn't want that, I should have probably left that out. But I just said a couple fallen rocks. That's good enough. It kind of gives you the idea of ruins. And I like that it's real basic, because when you're playing, and if you have like that dragon, for instance, it's going to take up a lot of room. So probably just use this for like one of the rooms. And then I'll say, and then maybe you'll put a door in, you know, whatever. But I don't like the idea that it had a grid, because the grids are often not straight. So I'm going to say recreate the map above to be a little more open and no grid. And I want it to be a little bit higher quality. We'll see. So this sort of thing here, I probably would have just had one of these to demark this chamber, but you know, it tried. The skeleton looks a little goofy, but I just kind of wanted bones, so I probably should have just said bones. But you got to kind of be careful what you ask for, because it's going to give you pretty much exactly what you're saying. So that was my fault in that case. But I would still use this. The problem with this, though, is, let's see. When you do something like this, I'm going to check this out. I haven't done this in a while, so I'm going to put it in Fantasy Grounds and see how it comes out. So I'm going to just copy it. Normally, I would compress it and do all this other. I would probably take it and change it into WebP and all that other stuff. But for the time being, I want to see if I can. I'm going to bring it into Fantasy Grounds. So I'll go ahead and just say map underscore. I'll say desert tomb. And then I'll say underscore 01 just in case. And then on this side, I'll say Rocky Tomb. This will be unidentified. And then when you add images to Fantasy Grounds, you click on the library, go to Assets, And then what you're going to do here with the assets is make sure you click on images and then click on folder, and that'll take you to the back end of Fantasy Grounds where you can put this image in here. And then I'm going to change this title. So I'm going to say map desert tomb before I import it, because this is, you don't want a title like this. Let's say 01. There we go. Now that I have that, now I'm going to hit refresh, and now it makes a folder called campaign, and that's where the actual image is. So what I'm going to do is just drag this image into here and expand this thing out. See, it looks okay. The only problem is when you try to put a grid on something like this, if it already has the grid baked into it, it's going to give you grief usually. So what I want to do is check that. So a lot of times you find maps online and they already have this grid baked into it. I want to say 9 times out of 10 it's going to be off or it's going to be wrong. So I'll try it. So I'm going to go to the grid setting, and I don't know what this resolution is going to be. So I'm just going to left click and drag and make my own grid. So right click, go to layers, go to set grid, and I'm going to left click and drag. Oops. Left click and drag until I get close. There we go. That's pretty close. Now what you'll see here is it's off. So even if I move this and fix it or try to fix it, it's going to be off somewhere else. So it's not actually square. And that's what I'm saying about getting maps from random sources, is that you're not going to know what the scale is. And on top of that, it's going to be all messed up. Like it looks good here in the middle, but then way down here it's off. Yeah, it's not even worth it. So I don't even bother with the grid anymore if I'm going to be making it. It's just not worth it. You're just going to fight with it. I can put it in a program called Grid Align, and it will help you line up the grids if you really need it. But this thing is so far off that it's not even worth dealing with. So I'm going to delete this from the images list because I don't want to use it anymore. And then you go to your assets, go to campaign, and just open up the folder and delete it from there, and then hit refresh, because that will purge it basically. But if it's linked to something already, you're gonna have to fix that later. So be careful with that. So images, folder, delete. And then what you do is you refresh it again, and all those references are gone. So that's something you'll run across if you're trying to, collect maps online randomly or make them from ChatGPT or whatever. It drives me nuts, so I don't even bother. So here we go. So here's something a little bit better. So let's try this one. So it is a little bit more open, like I asked it to be, which is nice. So I'm going to download this image, and we're going to try it again. So like that. Yeah, that's quite a difference there. Wait, is that the right one? Yeah, I don't think I downloaded the right one. Let's go. Okay, so save, open, there we go. So let's take this and put it in here. And we're going to title it map _ desert tomb _ 01 or something like that. That way it has an actual title, not X5 3J17, something stupid like that. So let's do that, and here we go. So this is going to work out probably a little bit better without a grid on it. This way you can scale it the way you want. So with this in mind, since I already have the group made, I'm going to say create map record from this preview image, and that'll put it over there instead of dragging it over. And then what I'm going to do is take and set the scale. I think this would probably be 5 feet probably, but we'll see. So again, I'm going to go to this scale thingy and try to draw it in. So set grid. I'm going to use this corner for reference. So probably about here. Yeah, that's about right. So a 30-foot chamber, or basically like a room. See, that looks good. That's doable. And then you can unlock it. You take this, and let's go to effects. What I want to do is, where's the dust? Oh, I don't think I need that. Let's see. Let's go to line of sight. And what we're going to do is just put a rectangle around it. So let me recenter this so you guys see what I'm doing. And we're going to go to the wall tool, the rectangle, and just left click and drag. So, and then I'm still holding the left mouse button, by the way, and let go. So there we go. Now I'm going to put one through here, but this is going to be a single line. And if you hold, I believe it's the shift key, and you drag over and then click again. Oops. Let me try that again. So shift, click, drag, double click. There we go. So this is our little extra here. So what I'm going to do is, how you can get rid of this stuff or break it up is, I'm going to draw a little line in here and a little line in there. So take the line tool and just left click and double click here, left click and double click there. And all that's going to do is give me the ability to basically to delete that material. You got to make sure that you're in the selection mode. So if I double click these two things here, I can delete. And I just wanted to insert that point essentially. And then same thing here. And now I'm going to draw a line in the center and do the same thing. So go back to the selection mode, double click on these dots here and hit the delete key. And now I can just delete that point, and that gets rid of that center. And then these little tails, I can just single click on those and delete those. So they're not sticking out, or you don't really need those. Now I think what I'll do is find some sort of torch light, maybe one up here or something like that. So I'm going to go into my assets. And these aren't part of the campaign. These are some of the stuff that I've collected over the months and years. So I'm going to go back to home. I'm going to try torch and see if I have anything. See, it's on all. I don't want that. I want it on images. There we go. Now torch. Because if you put it on all, it's going to do just about every single thing you have. Bad enough, I already have a bunch of stuff. So while that's searching, this is just some of the processes you might go through when you're adding content to Fantasy Grounds. This is very basic and simple. Over time, I used to love these really elaborate maps, but now that I've used Fantasy Grounds for a while, I think the simpler this is, the better. It's not going to be as annoying or as frustrating. So, as you have those huge maps, it just creates drama a lot of times, and sometimes it'll even make it to where hold up your players. So I like this thing here. This is a sconce. So what you do here is go to layers mode, and then I'm going to take and drag this asset or this torch sconce, Actually, I'm just going to use this wall torch thing. So, yes. There's confirm. Oops, I don't want to do that. See, this is what I was trying to avoid. There we go. Control Z. Yeah, so I was trying to avoid this. Let me go back to object. And let's try that. There we go. So you got to make sure that's an object and not an edit. So now what I'll do is rotate the object to where it's going to stick out the right way. So it's kind of going angular towards the northwest there. And it takes a 2x2 square. That's way too big. So I'm going to do 0.5. 0.5 should do it. I'm just click here. And did it stamp? Oh, I got to stamp it. Oh, darn it. I got the wrong one. Okay, so let's do that again. So to do that, you got to make sure you're in stamp mode. And this looks like it may already have something attached to it, like lighting. I'll have to look. See, that's too big. So I'm going to scale it down before I place it. There we go. So taking off the snap to grid. And then I think that's good enough. Hit escape. So that one. There we go. Okay, so this thing here is now attached. I got to see if it has lighting on it. No. Let me double check. So click on this, click on that. Yeah, so it doesn't have lighting assigned to it. So if I go to the lighting and then click on the light bulb here, add light, use the drop down, go to torch, and I have the torch halo thing selected. So I'm just going to click on that. And it should technically, there we go. So now it's lighting up the areas. There's a little bit of shadow in here, which is fine. And then if you want to get really fancy, let's go to effects, add an effects layer. So this will be on the very top. And then we're going to assign it the dust. Nope, that's not what I wanted. I think there's an animated dust thing that I wanted to try. So I'm going to delete that layer. I wanted to add another asset, is what I wanted. So I want to say animated dust. There we go. So there's a dusty interior and a fill. So I'm going to do this one. And like I said, you want to go to layers and click on the stamp tile tool and then take the fill, one of these fills. So this one is here. Now this is 3.5 by 3x2. So I think I'm going to go with 4 because that'll cover up this entire thing. And then I'll click here in the center. So it'll go past there a little bit, and now you got all these little dust particles flying around. And then if you think it's overwhelming or too much, you can always click on that instance of it, go to the tint tool, and then go down to, you can take that and kind of dial that in so it's not as bright. So let me see. So I wanted to go to this, and so you can almost make it disappear, but I just wanted to lighten it a little bit so it's not too noticeable. And you can see it kind of fits this area pretty well, so that worked out. But if you wanted to stretch it, you could. You could just, in edit mode, you could just take this and kind of expand that out a little bit. But there you go. So there's dust, there's your little room. And if you had time, I'd put the little dragon token somewhere. I'd probably make another chamber, larger or of several tiles. That's made, like, I probably cut this area out and just make my own tiles. You know, whatever you need to do to make this interesting. Let me see if there's a scorpion. I want to see if I can find one. Something that would work for that area. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, cool. So what I might do is take this thing and make this a little asset. And it's pretty big. So at the moment, I probably would change this to 0.5 again. And it's still pretty big. So 0.2. There we go. Maybe put this guy over here somewhere. You can barely see it. I mean, it's almost not worth it. But you can place this thing somewhere strategically, just for like, not so much for like, you know, attacking and that sort of thing, but more for like decoration. You know, something like that. Why isn't it letting me? Oh, it's snap to grid. So if you turn off the snap to grid, it'll give you that leverage. So this is going to be, we'll make this guy, put him on that rock right there. And then what I'll do is go back to this color picker and turn it down a little bit so it kind of blends in with the background a little bit more. And if you wanted the shadow, you could make a duplicate of it and put like a dark shadow underneath it, but I'm not going to do all that. So I just kind of put that in there just for the heck of it, just for decorations. But you get the idea. And then so like this is a decoration, so I might put that on one layer, might put or in a folder. Here's a torch with here's the dust. Yeah, so this is just kind of an idea of some of the stuff you can do with it. But I do like how the adventure turned out all in all. I mean, it's not perfect, but honestly, in about 4 hours, I can have a pretty good one shot with art and everything if I don't get distracted. But this could be a really nice piece to share with your players when they discover this guy. Who was that again? I forget. Yeah, I don't know why it hosed the stats. I'm not sure why it did that. Kareem. So it says you crest a dune, the wind shifts, bringing the stench of decay. Below, torn tent and scattered bones mark the remains of an expedition. A faint groan comes from beneath a collapsed canopy. So you could walk up to this guy and he's like half dead. He's probably out of water. His name is Kareem Malu. You can stabilize him or do a medicine check. And then he warns of the scourge, which is essentially the dragon. He mentions the obelisk, Zahir's obelisk, and these pesky sand flea things that they came across. If you look around and investigate the area, you see flayed bones and drag marks. So you can see it, these like bones that are almost bare, almost like their bones have been stripped. And it could be predators, but when you look around and find footprints, you'll probably find big lizard or dragon footprints. And then the survival finds the actual more recent tracks toward the obelisk. So you get the impression that something attacked them, and if he doesn't tell you. Some of the dialogue options I put here, which is interesting because this is the kind of thing that kind of helps the game masters if they don't have any experience running games, or maybe you're just kind of fresh out of ideas. I like having these little things in here because this helps me, like if I can't think of anything, or maybe it inspires me to say something. But so if they ask about this thing, you could say it hunts beneath the sands. We never saw it coming. Or amber eyes wind like knives. Find the obelisk if you're fools enough. And then the fleas, we were cursed before we ever saw the beast. So these fleas are pretty good size, about the size of a peanut. And they're pretty nasty. They actually come from the dragon, but they have like a disease. They're pretty nasty, and there's swarms of them. The fleas stir. So at camp, a sand flea swarm emerges. So after you hang out there, maybe if you rest, whatever, it says, as dusk falls, tiny shapes crawl from your packs, peanut-sized insects skittering towards your skin. So they're trigger sand flea swarm combat. DC 12 to save if bitten or contract desert fever. You find the symptoms after a long rest. The first hazards are, besides the sand fleas, is heat exhaustion. So for every hour you travel in that heat, you have to make a DC con save or gain a level of exhaustion. There's shifting sands. There could be a point where you step wrong and you almost fall into a sinkhole. And then occasionally, if things are too boring or not moving enough, you can roll on a random desert encounters table, which is basically sand fleas. What do you know? A large scorpion or desert hazards like sinkholes. It's either death by sand fleas or roll again and more sand fleas or large scorpion or another sinkhole. So I didn't put a lot of effort into this, but probably would have ended up putting like a dust storm. So not everything would be combat related. Maybe like, reduced visibility, you get lost, that kind of thing, which will add to the desperation of, if you don't have water. So that's kind of cool. And then, like I said, you got stat blocks for the sand flea swarm. I made a generic one for the desert hazard, so that way you only have one stat block and it's got all the different things on it. So one for heat exhaustion, shifting sands, and a falling stone trap, which is in the actual tomb. And then you got the scorpion. You have Kareem, just in case you bring them along with you. There's a potion of healing, the drift globe, and scimitar of the sun scorpion. It's just a +1 scimitar. But when it's in sunlight, you gain advantage on intimidation checks, which is kind of cool. The blade bears an etched scorpion with a sunburst motif. And then here's the legal stuff. So you get the idea. And here's are different iterations. I kind of like these different tries, but I think this one actually captured it pretty well. And what I like is that it didn't spoil the entire adventure, right? You realize it's a desert theme thing, and you're gonna have these desert themes, but you don't see the dragon in here, which I hate that when you have a really cool cover with a dragon on it, but then it just gives it away. It's like, okay, there's a big dragon in this adventure, Just use some of the elements, like I like the sandstorm and the sand dunes, and even the obelisk and this symbol right here. And then you got this guy you meet in the beginning. There's so many pieces of good art out there, except for their spoilers that give away the plot right away. As soon as you see that picture, oh, we're fighting a dragon. Especially if it's a one shot, they already know that that's probably going to be their enemy or ally. So yeah, it just looks like a halfway decent attempt at making a custom adventure. Wouldn't take too long. And using the 5.2 reference manual for the SRD. So hopefully they get this into Fantasy Grounds to make it a little bit more convenient. I don't really need it, but it is helpful. See here, here's a cool map. So in the Book of Lairs, there's a scorpion map. So you might use something like this, something you already have, so you don't have to create your own. But I kind of like to have a little bit more control over it. I do like the dust elements, but I doubt your players are going to see that unless they zoom in really close. But it does take a little bit of processing. So if you're going to use a bunch of animated assets, make sure they're very short video loops. So if you download them as MP4s and then you convert them to WebM VP8 format, make sure they're only a few seconds long, because there's people out there that are rocking these maps that have like 10-second animation loops, and the actual files themselves are pretty big and they take quite a bit of processing. So be careful with animated files. Like something like this is really short and optimized for Fantasy Grounds, but if you find something that you like, take a look at it, edit it, find a good splice point so when it loops, it doesn't make that sudden cut. You got to kind of do a little bit of editing, and unless it's already set up that way. But there are some really beautiful maps out there. They're high quality. They even have sound embedded into them, but the video itself is like over 5 seconds, and you add the audio and everything else, it's just really a lot for your system. And Fantasy Grounds doesn't support the audio anyway, so there's no point. So you got to usually strip that out. But anyway, so that's enough for today. I just wanted to sort of put it out there that the 5.2 is out. You can use it in your favorite AI tools. As a matter of fact, I put it in Google LM Notebook. So I have my own kind of my own iteration here of the SRD 5.2. So that's this. And then I put a stat block for this water weird so it knows the format of the stat block. Those are the only 2 documents I've uploaded to this. What I want to do is query this. So I'll say how many spells are included in the new SRD 5.2. So that's one of the nice things about this Google LM is it helps keep your content organized, and you can query it. And it has some AI functionality. It doesn't really create as much as you'd get like out of ChatGPT or other AI tools. But if you wanted to query something, so 682 spells. Wow. I don't think that's right, but the number 682 represents the total count of spell entries. Oh, I see. There's 96. Okay. So some of them are probably repeated. I'll say how many classes are there? And just one instance not repeated. I don't want to know how many times it's repeated in a document. So sometimes these things are not. Okay, so it just listed it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's 10 classes. So this one isn't as I'd say intuitive, but at least you have a reference point, and it kind of, this is cleaner. It'll stay a lot cleaner. And as I need stuff to make content, I'll add it to this database so that I have it there, like my templates and all that stuff. Let's see. Yeah. So anyhow, you guys enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you guys around next time, and happy gaming, folks.